everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is the Travel Collective, and today we're talking with Cindy, and we're going to hear about her amazing trip to Iceland. I almost said Alaska. No, it's Iceland. So
Iceland.
yeah, it sounds amazing. So tell us, Cindy, where are we going?
So we're doing the Iceland Ring Road, and I had some anxiety over doing it again because I've done it before, and it's such a long distance. And I know, when I first started planning it, I thought, maybe we can just skip going all the way around. But I decided you can't because I missed too many amazing things. There's so many amazing things on the other end of Iceland. So we're just going to drive it. We're going to do the whole thing. It's 800 plus miles is what we'll be driving, doing the whole thing all the way around and seeing the vast differences in landscape as we go from, the West Fjords to the East Fjords and southern and northern Iceland. There's just changes so dramatically during that trip and seeing so many different parts of that. So that's where we're headed.
That sounds amazing. So what is the focus or purpose of the trip?
So this year we're focusing on the nature in Iceland because we're going to go in the summertime. We're going to go from the end of July to early August, 15 days in order to do the 800 miles so that we don't have to drive every single day of the trip. Otherwise, that's what you're doing. And we're really going to get up close to the glaciers, to the animals. We're going to get out on the water a couple of times. We're going to see the geothermal waters, whether that's from a geyser or getting in the bath, and seeing that in the lagoons or just getting out on the Black Beach. So you can just imagine there's a ton of nature and getting up close and able to touch it and be part of it. So there is about 16 hours of daylight during that time in Iceland. So we'll have plenty of daylight hours to see and experience things while we're there.
Oh, wow, sounds amazing. So who would you say the trip is for?
Anybody who wants to, experience that part. I know I've had young folks come with me, in their 20s and 30s that have joined, and I've had folks in their 60s and, late 60s and 70s come. I make sure that everything that is scheduled on the tour doesn't include more than about a 15 or 20-minute walk. We do a couple of town walks, like little villages. We'll do a little history tour, and that might take a little longer, but then it's in the village, so it's really easy. When we're going to visit waterfalls, all the waterfalls that we see will be about, at the most, 15-minute walk from the road or the parking area. So everybody will be able to go and do that. That's important. But on the other side, for those that are a little more able-bodied or want to be more adventurous, we will be staying in properties that have lots of hiking around them. So during your free time, if you really want to go for an hour hike this morning and go see a waterfall that just happens to be close by, because there's 10,000 waterfalls in Iceland, so they're everywhere. You can get up early and go for a little hike, or maybe when we have free time after dinner, because it'll be daylight till 10 p.m.
Oh, that's great.
You could take another short hike from the property or the area that we're staying. So I really think, there's the gamut of everything for everyone. And also, there's so much visually going on, as you talked about in yours. It's just, Iceland is so diverse. I mean, I can't say how dramatic it is to go from it's just glacier ice to green moss to waterfalls just within a few miles as we're driving, to see that change happen so drastically. So and I don't think you can see that anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, sounds beautiful. So how long? Oh, I think you already said how long, but how long is the trip?
The trip is 15 days, 14 nights, and it's really it starts on a Saturday, ends on a Saturday, so it's 2 full weeks. And I did that specifically so we could slow down a little bit as we go across there, so we could stay a night or two. Sometimes we're staying one night, but we'll stay a night or two in most of the locations so we can breathe a little, and get up in the morning and enjoy that space as we go along. Otherwise, it would take us days and days. Every day we would be packing up our stuff to move along, and I don't want to do that.
Right,
So 15
right.
days is what it is.
And how many people go on the trip?
So a minimum of 4, but a maximum of 12, which is 10 guests and 2 leaders. So will be myself if I get to that large. And we do it in 2 cars. So we get an SUV or a van, something that will hold the 6 people, 2 in the front, 4 in the back. And that's what we usually drive around. We don't go off-roading, so we don't need an SUV. We may choose to do that just depending on what's available and what makes the most sense, especially on the size-wise. So that's usually what we do. And I keep it to that so we can be flexible.
Right, exactly. So what
Yeah.
is the lodging like?
Oh, that's a great question because the lodging is so different in Iceland. So when you're planning a trip like this to go into these remote places of Iceland, there are very limited lodging locations in some of the places, right? So
Yeah.
you either have nothing or a hostel or camping or there's some of those places. So most of the places I have located really nice hotels. They're sort of that Scandinavian style where they have two very small twin beds in each room. Everyone would have their own room with their own in-suite bathroom. That is usually how it's done. However, in a couple of these more remote places, instead of getting a lower end hotel or hostel, which is available, I've opted to rent a whole farmhouse. So in
Oh,
those cases, we have a couple of places where we're renting like an artist retreat farmhouse. So we have nicer lodging. We will share bathrooms in that situation. They don't have one for everyone, but they'll be nicer than we would if we stayed in some of the hostels or camping, more rugged places, as you know. And then we are staying in a Viking house, which is also sort of open plan and people, but it's styled after the way Vikings lived. So we'll do that at the end of the trip as well. By that time, we'll be all friends and it will be very comfortable. But other than those two places, most of it's all what you would expect from the hotels. But we have to make that choice. And as we actually book it and see how many people are going, we may make some adjustments, but that's the plan right now.
yeah, that sounds wonderful. So
Yeah.
what would you say are some of the highlights? I know it's hard when it's such a place with so many.
So I have three things that I think for me, are the big things. The first thing is visiting the farm tours. So we are going to visit several times, visit animals and farms, but we're specifically going to a farm in the northern part of Iceland where there's three women, actually it's three farms, three women own these farms, a horse farm, Icelandic horses, Icelandic sheep, and Icelandic goats. There's one
Oh
of
my God.
each. They all live on the same road. And so we visit each one of them. They actually bring us into their home, into the farm. We get to meet, interact with the animals. They give us a little history of the animals because each one of these are unique Icelandic farm animals. Icelandic horses are very beautiful. They're smaller than the traditional horse that you would see. The Icelandic sheep are very unique as well as the goats. So we'll get to do that. That is one of my favorite things to do, just because I feel like when we do that, we're really connecting with what real Iceland is like, the culture, because a big portion of Iceland is farmland. That's what's happening there. The other is getting to go out on the island and see the puffins, which is the reason we're going during this timeline. There are over 10,000 puffins on this island, which is really tiny. So I imagine it'll just be littered with them during the time we're there. But we'll see the puffins. They're there between May and September, because we'll be there in the early August timeframe. We should be able to see quite a few of them all over. They're both on the north and the south. So there are some specific days we're planning to see them, but I imagine we'll see them more than just those days. And then the last thing is taking the cruise up to Grimsley Island, which is in the Arctic Circle. So we'll actually get to cross over into the Arctic Circle. They'll give us a lovely little certificate. There's some wildlife specifically on this island, but on the ferry boat ride over, we are promised to see whales. So there are a lot of blue whales and humpback whales, which is also a great treat. So those are the highlights that I pick out, although there's several other things. Those are the big ones for me.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So if you want to check out Cindy's tour, we have it listed on our website, which is the-travelcollective.com. And so join us again for another episode and find more travel.
Oh, can't wait. Thanks,
Thanks,
April.
Cindy.
Uh-huh.